so much. Good stuff. Okay, our next speaker up. Representative Dan Sura. Can you hear all right? Yeah. All right. Hey, you speakers, when we're up, just back off the mic a little bit so we don't get that heavy popping. We are videotaping this, by the way, so people who couldn't make it this evening, we are going to make it available on DVD. We're also going to be making it available for free download on the internet. Representative Dan Sura. Since 1991, Representative Dan Sura served the 75th District, Pennsylvania, which consists of Elk and parts of Clearfield County. He was born in Ridgeway. I'm going to leave the year out, Dan. They put it in. You need to speak with your people about that. And he currently resides in Kersey. What? You're right there. You're right there, right in the thick of it, with his wife, Victoria. Representative Sura and his wife are the proud parents of 3 adult sons and recently have become grandparents. Representative Sura graduated from Elk County Christian High School in 1971, went on to Penn State, became a technology education teacher at Du Bois Area School District for years. He left education to pursue a political career as a result of his frustrations. Let me say it again. As a result of his frustrations with out-of-state waste entering Pennsylvania and the lack of actions from the representatives at the time, the man decided to do something about it. This is an example. If you're not happy with the community the way that it's going, get involved. So currently, Representative Sura is on the following committees: Education, Environmental Resources and Energy, Policy, Game and Fisheries, and Labor Relations. Chairman, Subcommittee on Mining. He also serves as the Vice President of the Democratic Northwest Caucus and Treasurer of the Legislative Sportsmen's Caucus. When Representative Sura is not working as a public servant, he takes pleasure in spending time with his wife, sons, and granddaughter, and he enjoys spending time outdoors, hunting, fishing, and is very involved in local stock car racing. Mr. Sura, activist turned politician, is going to talk with us about what works and what doesn't by way of activism. Dan Sura.
Thank you, Sam, and I'm going to take off my hat as a legislator and talk to you now as a community activist, which is where I started. And just as a way of a little background, before I even start, don't you love that guy? I've had the honor and pleasure to serve with him on his committee for the last 16 years. And I am not telling lies when I tell you that he fights very, very hard on these very issues. And if you know Bud George, you don't have to wonder what he's thinking, because he'll tell you. And I'm glad to see some of our county commissioners here tonight. Give them a round of applause. We're number one. And we're number one and not a good thing. It's not something to be proud of to be number one of the states in the importation of solid waste. Just as a way of a little background of how I got involved, and then I can explain to you how I know a little bit about what works and what doesn't work. I was a school teacher in Du Bois, living in Kersey, driving every day back and forth. There was a proposed landfill down below my house. It's now the Green Tree landfill. It was on your map up there in the middle of Elk County. It was initially sited to serve Elk, Clearfield, Jefferson County. It was to last us 25 years. And there wasn't really a lot of opposition to it because our landfill had filled up and we all put trash out on the curb every week. My bags are probably much smaller than yours because I recycle extensively. And interestingly enough, the landfill was permitted and it was immediately sold. And then it was filled up in 8 months. And it was filled up with waste from Canada, New Jersey, New York, the whole eastern seaboard. And before we realized this, they had not told us that this was going on. I remember reading about it in the local paper, but as I'm driving back and forth to school, I'd meet tractor trailer after tractor trailer after tractor trailer. I'd pass 30 of them in a 5-minute period on my way to school in the morning. And so I started asking some questions. I went to a couple townships meetings, and Well, the guy from the landfill that was there at every meeting said, well, we take about 10 trucks a day, you know, just to try to help pay our bills. Well, I thought, well, they're supposed to be paying us $1 a ton. Okay. And so I had a friend start counting. And at that point, there was about 225 to 250 a day. And today, it's much, much more than that. But finally, one tipped over coming off of Interstate 80, and the newspaper said, well, it was coming from New York City. So I went with that in hand to the next township meeting, and they said, yeah, well, we do take some waste from out of state. And at that point in time, this was in the mid-'80s, landfill permits and applications started popping up all around here. And Du Bois, where I taught, and now I represent that portion of Clearfield County, there were 17 proposed landfills or unwanted land uses permit applications pending for a 50-mile radius of Du Bois. And, you know, I got concerned. And I'm glad to see such a good turnout here tonight from the area. Because usually people that live 10 miles from the landfill, it doesn't matter to them. It's hard to get the fire in their belly. It's hard to get them off their chairs to go fight. It's hard to get them to donate any money for the cause. But ask the people in Little Penfield, and there's some people from the Penfield area here right now. Ask them if they had it to do over, if they had to help me fight that landfill. Because Penfield was a nice, sleepy, rural town that you could actually fall asleep on the yellow line. And today, it's the Daytona 500 of tractor trailers hauling garbage. And it's not even safe. And it's irreversible at this point. So, when I saw that there was all these landfills proposed, I got involved. And I got involved in a big way. I organized a citizens group which included all of Elk County. And it was called Citizens Action for a Safe Environment. And I saw right away that while there's power in numbers, we needed more power. We needed help from our elected officials. We didn't have it from our local supervisors. We didn't have it from our then Board of County Commissioners in Elk County. We changed 2 boards of supervisors. We changed the Elk County Commissioners. I ran against a 4-term incumbent elected official and spanked them. And I didn't have any money. I didn't have any name recognition. My yard signs were aluminum siding. That's no kidding. 8-inch aluminum siding, stenciled, Sora, representative. I'm a bullheaded guy. I knocked on 17,000 voters' doors, and I won. Bud George helped me a lot. You don't need to do that to him because he's behind you already. But this guy would not help us, and I couldn't get him to listen. So we changed the whole political landscape up in that area. And I saw it as a regional problem. I went around to all different towns and different communities, just as a citizen, spending my own money, my own time. I met Mr. Michaels, 17 years ago. And he's a testament to what it's going to take. When you talk about what works and doesn't work, you better be in it for the long haul, because they won't go away. They will not go away. But you have to go into it with number one, organized. There's power in numbers. There's 2 types of power. There's money, which they have, but we have people. When you can fill a room like this up, when you can fill your township meeting up like this, those people are elected and they should and will listen. Okay? Why do they target us? Why here? There's a number of reasons. 1, we're rural. 2, we're relatively poor. Although we're not dirt poor, we don't have the kind of money it takes to fight these groups, these organizations usually. And we have Interstate 80 going right through this huge rural area that has all this cheap land. And when there's a township that has no zoning, that sends up a strobe light to them. No zoning, no zoning. They go in and they buy off the township supervisors, maybe not by money exchanging hands, but they promise them the world, and maybe there is, but it's hard to prove that sometimes. And they promise them the world, and next thing you know, they have the locally elected officials cooperating with them. And that usually happens until the people find out. And once the people find out, those people are either change their minds or they're unelected in a hurry. So, you have to organize. Okay? If you don't have elected people that are fighting for you, you need to put people in there that will fight for you. You have to be prepared to be in it for the long haul. This isn't a sprint. It's a long, long race. When I started as an activist, I organized locally. I saw that it just wasn't going to be the case group in Elk County did it. I was at an environmental conference out in East Liverpool, Ohio, and I saw all these groups in Pennsylvania. And I started talking to these people. Guess what? They're from every rural county, all fighting the same thing. So I put a big poster down in the lobby of the motel, meet in my room at this time. So myself and a lady named Diana Steck from down in Yukon, Pennsylvania, was fighting a hazardous waste facility there. We organized a group called the Pennsylvania Environmental Network, PEN. They have a great website. I think you may have worked with them. That's one of the other things, other than organizing, there's power in numbers, network. Talk to other groups. You can find out information many times in the very company you're fighting, because they're not just trying to come into your community. And you find out from them things that work and things that don't work. How can you raise money? How do you keep the fire in the belly? How do you get people concerned enough that live 10 miles away from the landfill, or may live on the route to the landfill? And my argument is, we live in rural Pennsylvania. We live here for a lot of reasons. There's probably better places we could go that have better jobs. But I don't know if there's places where we could go where there's nicer places to raise a family, or there's nicer places in the wintertime or in the fall. We live here because we like to hunt and fish. We live here for a lot of reasons because of our rural culture. We don't live here because we want to be the pay toilet for the Eastern Seaboard. They come here because we're rural, we don't have a lot of clout, and why should we fight? Why should we keep doing it? I will tell you why. If you don't fight, you can expect another one right behind it. And if you don't fight, you can expect another one right down the road. That's not the future I want for my children and grandchildren. Oh, and they'll tell you, they're state of the art. Well, they are state of the art. We've made them build them with the best technology we can build a landfill in. But don't think that it's never going to have any problems. Man hasn't built the thing that doesn't have problems yet. And what I always argued at the hearings that I went to, I hope they build the damn landfill to last longer than Interstate 80 has. Okay? Down below my home, if you ever have the opportunity to go up the Toby Road off of 219 towards Kersey, when you look to your right, there are literally mountains. They look like reclaimed strip jobs. Well, let me tell you what used to be there. Valleys. There are literally millions of tons of trash. Every ton of that trash came down off of Interstate 80, down through Penfield, down through Horton Township, and up into Kersey. There have been countless accidents, truck wrecks, trucks sideways on Penfield Mountain, and you haven't lived until you followed 5 tractor trailers up Penfield Mountain in August when it's 90 degrees, believe me. You have to learn how to raise money. You can't make these fights on your own unless somebody in this room is independently wealthy and willing to invest a lot of money. It's a battle. My children and myself have protested people. We've been involved in pickets. I've had my life threatened by the waste industry, and I was threatened with lawsuits in the millions of dollars for speaking out. And at the end of the day, that's why I ended up running for office. My priest had heard about my being threatened. And I'm coming out of church, and he grabs me and says, "Did this really happen?" And I'm like, "Yeah," you know. And he gave me a phone number of a lady to call, and her name's Lois Gibbs. I'm sure many people have internet access. put Lois Gibbs in it. She has an organization now that helps communities fight these things. And I called her. And if you remember, did anybody ever hear of Love Canal? Well, she was the lady that started the Love Canal Homeowners Association. And what Love Canal was, they built a housing development on a hazardous waste facility. And there were 19 stillbirths within a 2-block period, 2-block area in 1 year. All new young families. Her children had all these weird health problems. And then she started to do some research. Why is this happening? Here's our new home, the American dream. And she found out. And of course, Hooker Chemical and DuPont Chemical, those outfits didn't want to do anything about it. Well, Jimmy Carter was running for president, and she had somebody stand every place he went, no matter where it was in America. What are you going to do about Love Canal? And when he got elected, he found out about Love Canal. And they ended up buying those people out and moving them. She did that with this little poor community of working people. So you can do that. And she talked to me on the phone and she said, they threatened you. Yes. Okay. They threatened to sue you also? I said, yes. She goes, well, you have to be careful how you speak. And I learned how to talk differently. I couldn't say that XYZ landfill company has links to the mafia. I had to say, in my opinion, I think they have links to the mob. And I couldn't say, this is for certain. I'd have to say, I believe. Because this is still America, and I can think whatever I want to think. At least so far we can. They haven't done that yet. They might be listening to my phone conversations. I don't know. But and she told me that probably won't happen. Sometimes they do sue people. But they just do that to keep you quiet. And I said, well, I don't want to keep quiet. I don't want this to happen. And she said, well, then there's only one thing you can do. Two things you can do. You can shut up, and they'll go away out of your life. And I said, but I don't want to do that. She goes, well, then you have to be very vocal. You have to be the focal point of all the interest, all the letters to the editor, all the meetings. You have to be the person standing up front. So I talked to my wife about it, and we decided to do that. And, we made a lot of progress. Not one of those landfills has been permitted that I told you about. But it was a long, long fight. The two in DuBois, we had them put away, done. They were dead. Governor Ridge got elected. And I got a call from the DEP individual up in Meadville. Now I'm an elected official now. And he says, we have to issue the permit for those landfills. I'm like, what? I was assured by Governor Casey that they wouldn't be issued because of the problems with the permits. Well, with the new governor, those problems went away. So the permits were issued, then we ended up in court. Hired a gentleman named Robert Ging, a great environmental attorney, used to work for DEP. And we beat him. But when I tell you you're in it for the long haul, we started fighting him in like 1986. I think we finally beat him like in 1990. Or it might have been in 2000. I don't know. It was years and years of fighting. You know what? It's hard to keep a few hundred people fired up for years and years. It really is. And they will wear you down. They will keep the pressure on the back of your neck until you bend. So I'm here to tell you what works. You refuse to lose. You don't give up. You don't quit. You put people in office that will help you. Because at the end of the day, those things can work. There is no silver bullet to stopping one of these things. And what they'll come up with is a plan and a permit. And they have to go by the regulations. And you, at the end of the day, if they get that far, you have to prove where their proposal does not comply with the regulations. And it's difficult. On the re-permitting of Green Tree Landfill in Kersey, when I got my life threatened by a guy from New York City, he had a pretty nice suit on. I don't know if he worked with the mob or not, but in my opinion, he did. But we were this close to shutting him down on a technicality. That landfill was placed on the only, one of the few areas in southern Elk County that has limestone under it. And you're not allowed to put a landfill over significant limestone deposits because of the limestone eating away, forming a cavern, and the way the landfill caves it in, tears the liner, and then the integrity of the landfill itself is breached and the leachate leaks all over. Well, they had a problem. And interestingly enough, Toby, the little water supply, the community below my house, was a quarter mile from this landfill. And they were not allowed to strip the coal there because of that water supply. But they let them put a landfill there. Interesting. So, and this is the old DEP. And we were battling. We had them stuck. They could not expand this landfill. And there was multi-million-dollar investment. What DEP ended up doing, they gave them an incidental mining permit to take the coal out so they could go underneath the coal to mine the limestone. They let them put the expanded landfill in. So we got one stuck in us, okay? Good lesson learned. But that's how you have to fight them. Refuse to lose, organize, network with other communities, other groups across the state. One nice thing about them trying to put 3 of them here in Clearfield, Center counties, there's strength in numbers, people. There's strength in numbers. And you need to use that. Okay? And you can't just stand up and say, I don't want it, I don't want it, I don't want it, even though you just don't want it. You want them to go away. You have to make reasoned arguments, keep your head up, keep the pride of yourselves and your communities. You're doing the right thing. You're not in this to make a dime. I didn't get into fighting landfills to run for office, believe me. My life changed drastically when I was elected. In fact, I think if I could go back, I might have stayed in teaching. I had 3 little boys. I was home all summer. I had a great life. My life is a zoo now. Look at what I'm doing right now. All right? I mean, I was re-elected Tuesday. I had a tough race. I've been running around taking 1,000 signs down and tearing down 4 campaign headquarters. Today I spoke at 2 veterans celebrations at Ridgeway and Johnsburg High School. Went down toward the St. Mary's headquarters down. Went home, jumped in the shower, came down here. What a life! My wife doesn't even ask me where I'm going anymore. But you gotta fight. Win, lose, you gotta fight. The thing of it is, you can win. But you gotta know going in, it's gonna be a long fight. Don't let them bend you down. Don't give up. Don't quit. Do not let it happen. Refuse to lose. And you have to pay attention politically a little bit too. One of the things we were able to do was to increase the tipping fees. We were the cheapest place in the world to dump. And Governor Rendell had a brilliant idea, and we did pass Growing Greener too, which is putting millions and millions of dollars into the cleanup of many of our mine acid polluted streams around here. But the initial bill, and I was the prime sponsor, and Bud was the prime sponsor of the bond bill. I was the prime sponsor of the fee bill, the one that paid for it, the tax bill. That's the hard one. But Bud and I were both sponsors of those bills. We were going to put a $4 or $5 per ton increase in that tipping fee where it is now. Okay? It's brilliant. We're going to use that money to clean up environmental problems all across Pennsylvania. And guess who is paying more than half of that tax? New York, New Jersey, and Canada, Massachusetts, all those states that dump here. And he said rural legislators balked. I couldn't believe it. We can't even tax New York. It's unbelievable. And you know why they did it? Because the waste industry was in Harrisburg scaring everybody, and every waste hauler and every waste company in this state sent all of you letters saying, oh, your bill's going to go up $1 million. And you know what the truth of it is? Do you put a ton of garbage out every year? Okay. So if it's $5 a ton, how much is it going to cost you a year? And more than what we put in is going to be coming from New York and New Jersey. It's brilliant. Couldn't pass it. It's unbelievable. Those are the kind of things you have to push, those buttons, getting a hold of your elected officials, but guess what? When it comes to having an organization to lobby and put pressure on statewide officials, who do you think's better organized? Groups like this or groups like the waste industry? The waste industry. That's why it's important who you put in office, that they go down there and they work in your best interest. I mean that. A lot of people are turned off by voting, the campaigns are negative, blah, blah, blah. Well, you got to cut through all that stuff. And you got to pay attention to the issues that are important to you. So, as I leave you, I want you to know just a few things to remember. Organize. Network. You're in for it for the long haul. And most importantly, refuse to lose. Thank you.
Amen.